Adolescents are a tricky population. So when you think about how do we get them vaccinated, why we're behind national goals. So we go through a wonderful preventive care platform for kids all the way through 11 to 12. And then all of a sudden they hit adolescence and they don't come in for preventive care anymore for some reason. So we lose access to the adolescents. Transition them at 16 into young adulthood, where they then become owners of their own prevention and owners of their own healthcare. And I think that will actually help us when they become adults, because right now, as you know, we don't do preventive care in adults very well. And maybe if we start training them as adolescents, we can get them there faster. There's actually 2 meningococcal vaccines that are recommended for them. We're talking about the meningococcal ACWY vaccine. And then there's another vaccine, but it's the meningococcal B vaccine. There are other vaccines that we would want people to kind of remember and pay attention to for either catching up and making sure that they're vaccinated, or assessing and just making sure they've even been vaccinated, right? So we're talking things like, for example, HPV vaccines, we're talking about Tdap vaccines, and if it's the flu season, obviously we want to get flu vaccine in. So don't forget, at 16, you want to engage that adolescent, right? Because we're thinking about transitional care now, and you ask them to come in. Look at your records, make sure that you really are doing what you think you're doing. And if they do that, they find, oh, actually I'm not. I'm missing half the adolescents that come into my office. Right, so what you can do in order to get these kids in, you can think about things like patient reminder recall. Patient reminder recall is strongly recommended by the task force for improving immunization coverage rates. The other way to improve immunization coverage rates for adolescents in your practice is implementing something called standing orders. So standing orders are a process of routinizing and automating the delivery of immunizations in your practice. It allows you to delegate that responsibility to someone in your practice, like a nurse, a physician assistant, essentially creating like a mini immunization program in your practice. Pharmacy and pharmacist delivered immunizations are actually a really important access point for adolescent vaccinations, especially when you hit the 16-year-old older adolescent, right? Because at this point, they access healthcare differently. I think the medical home is still extremely important, but I think there's an important role for collaboration between pharmacy as well as traditional primary care providers to figure out a way that we can make vaccinations happen for the 16-year-old. The 3 C's essentially stand for confident, concise, and consistent. And so what we, with this project, which I recommend you could take a look at the website, it's unity14vax.org. You can find a whole bunch of supportive materials to do this. And that is, how do you give this confident, concise, and consistent recommendation to your parent?